Good afternoon, good evening, friends and relatives, and we are live at Little Priest Tribal College. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you, those that are going to be tuning in over to the YouTube channel and whatnot. This is the Winnebago 2022 Tribal Council Candidates Forum, and this is usually hosted by the Native American Studies Department at Little Priest Tribal College. I do want to kind of make mention here that our department head had a family emergency, so she won't be here this evening, and we send our well wishes and a speedy recovery to her family member. Um, we like to kind of introduce and have a welcome. My name is Garen Coons. I am the communications officer for the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska. We, in conjunction, helped Little Priest through the pandemic for this council candidates forum. And again, we're here to provide some information for when the voters go to the polls next Tuesday. For those that are wondering, the polls will open at 8 a.m. and they will close at 8 p.m. Tuesday, October, down at the Black Hawk Community Center. And we encourage all eligible voters to get out and vote. There's going to be 3 council seats, and those are for 3-year terms. Real quick, we wanted to do a candidate introduction. We have 3 candidates here that have been waiting since 5 p.m. We did have a little technical difficulty, so we apologize for that delay. And we see that more people are coming on to the YouTube channel. We are going to give you candidates here an opportunity to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself. You'll have 1 minute to do that. There'll be a timekeeper, and then we'll get into the questions. So right now we want to turn the floor on over to our candidates, and we'll just start from left and go to the right here. So we'll start with gentleman, Mr. Eric Armel, with your introduction. Come on up here. And we get 1 minute for introduction, so we might need to change that time. 1 second here. And then we'll just kind of go from there. So there'll be your time candidates, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Okay. All right. Go for it.
Oh, hi, P. Chikarago ni Karagi. Rasha Neja Huajiga, Eric Carmel, in Gaidna. Good afternoon, I greet you. My whole chunk name is Neja Huajiga, means coming out of the water. Eric Carmel. Thank you.
Water. My whole chunk name is Mashupi Winga, means good feather. I'm of the Eagle Clan. Um, and I want to thank the ones who showed up and the ones who are online. And I want to just say that this voting is very important because it affects each and every one of us tribal members, from the ones who ain't born yet to the older ones. So it's really important that you get out there and then listen to each and every one of the candidates here, what they could offer to the council if selected. So I want to say that much. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Painter. My Indian name is Ahuskainga, which means white wing. That was given to me by my grandfather, Fred Rice. I'm descended from the Bear Clan. My mom is a Bear Clan member and has a Bear Clan name. I don't because my father is not from here. And I'm not really sure what we're just introducing ourselves. I wrote a letter, so I guess I didn't want to repeat everything I wrote in my letter. I don't know when that's going to be in the Win or posted online. I think I saw those on Facebook last year. But, oh, yeah, and I just wanted to send out well wishes to Cassie and her family. Sorry to hear about whatever tragedy that's going on with them, and hope things turn out well for them. And then thank you to the 2 other candidates who are here for the forum. And thank you to everybody that will be listening to us and everybody in the audience. And hopefully everybody can get informed and get out and vote next Tuesday. Thank you.
All right, candidates. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for those that are starting to tune in here. We got about 13 people that are online. And for those that are kind of tuning in online, if you have a question, though, the students came up with two questions here, and then we'll take some questions from the audience as well as we'll try to take some questions from the chat window on YouTube. So go ahead and please share this. The other three candidates, if they come in, we'll give them an opportunity to do an introduction and stuff. But so far here at Little Priest Tribal College in the auditorium, we have Dusty, Thelma, and Amy. Okay, so the rules. Each candidate gets 2 minutes to answer each question. When questions are opened up to community members, the community members have 1 minute to ask a question, or they can type it into a chat. Or we do have, if you feel you don't need to get up and talk, we have some notepads and some pins over here if you want to write your question down, and we can relay that. We'll try to screen. Please, no disrespectful questions or comments will be tolerated. And when the candidates are up here, we want to make sure that there's no interruptions as they get a time limit. So we want to make sure that that happens. Okay, so we'll start. Dusty will go first on question number 1. Question number 2, Thelma will go first. And then question number 3, Amy will go first in that kind of order, okay? So here is the question, candidates, and you each have a time, 2 minutes to respond to the question. This is a student question. Dusty, with the new casinos being in operation, that is Warhorse Casinos, what is your opinion on what we should do with the profits, and shall the dividend be higher from HCI? So as soon as he gets up here and starts talking, we'll start the time. There's your question.
Yes, my opinion is that we should take these profits and, well, they'll come to the tribe. But what I think we should do with them is just put them in the tribe's general account, because there's a lot of emergencies that our community comes to the council and I ask for help. And times like now, at the end of the fiscal year coming, that our budget is pretty small and we can't help everybody. And so I believe those profits would aid our community in their times of need during a time like this time, like I said, at the end of the fiscal year. And as for the dividend, I always think that should be higher. And yeah, I know we can only take so much, but with what we do get, we use it to the best of our ability. So, thank you.
Okay, Thelma. With the new casinos being in operation, what is your opinion on what we should do with the profits, and shall the dividend from HCI be higher?
With the dividends, I believe that it should be kept just saved with our money that we have at Liberty. Just keep that there, um, and don't touch it. Just leave it there. Um, One of the things that was done prior that can be done is take the tribal programs back that had been placed under the IHS. Those are tribal monies that we are missing out on. That was revenue for the tribe, and that's how the Rolling Thunder was built, was from that, and that was from the Dennels revenue that they brought into the tribe. So I would like to see those come back, and we can use those instead. And what was the other question?
Should the dividend be higher?
Oh, yes, the dividend should be higher. And I would like to see what was it?
The Warhorse Casino?
Yeah. I would like, what was the question again?
So, with the new casinos being in operation, what is your opinion on
Oh, the
what we should do with
dividend.
the profits?
Oh, the profit. No, the bottom one.
Okay, and then shall the dividend be higher from HCI?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, that should be higher because I guess I'm not really clear on how that dividend is anyway, being that the that horse, what is that? That association? No, the association. the Horsemen's Association, and all those ones who put in money to make that possible, they'll get their cut first. So I'm not sure where the tribe is on that totem pole. Are we the lowest on the totem pole? So I would like to see that. But yes, I agree that it should be a higher dividend. Thank you.
Okay, this is the first questions for those that are just joining us here. This is a student question. So, Amy, with the new casinos being in operation, what is your opinion on what we should do with the profits? And shall the dividend from HCI be higher?
I guess I'll start with the dividend question first and then go into what we could use the profits for, because it's not a simple yes, it should be higher, or no, it should be lower, because they have to make sure that the company pays the debts or has the funds that it needs to continue to make money. So usually businesses in the early part of their life, they require more money to sustain their operations and pay off debts, such as some of the things that Thelma had mentioned. And then later on, as they get their debts paid off and they become more sustainable and they build up their base of consumers that are going to be spending there, then they can increase their dividends over time. So I think because it's a really new business, that it's not easy to say, yes, I think the dividend should be higher. I think that everything needs to be analyzed to make sure that the casinos have the money to grow and to build the profit for long term, and that down the road, as the income increases, then we could go back and look at what the dividend's going to be. So that's my answer to that. The second part is, what should we use the dollars for? I think that the tribe has identified, a lot of different things that we can use funding for, but I think it's really good to we do pretty good job of writing for grants, and I think we're pretty well known nationally for securing funding and the different programs that we run in our community. But I feel like we could do a better job of assessing, like, these are the high needs areas in our community. These are the programs that we have addressing them, and identifying where the missing pieces are, or where we could actually use funds to do something. Maybe we don't have a grant dollars to do that. And I think we started to do some of that, like through the building of the new Boys and Girls Club. But that's really what I feel like is identifying where the shortcomings are, where the highest needs are, and then targeting, if we can't get grant dollars for that, then targeting profits to cover those, or either to apply for funds so that we could run more programs in the community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, candidates. For those that probably can't see here, we do have 3 other chairs and 3 other candidates that are not here with us tonight. But we do have Dusty, Thelma, and Amy. We're getting up there in the views on YouTube, but right now I have Bethany here that's going to help us out. Any of you have any questions? She's going to take around this piece of paper, this notepad, because we have one more student question, and then we'll get to the community's questions here. If you can write down your question and then bring it up to Bethany, or give it back to Bethany, then we'll kind of go from there. So we're ready for question number 2. Dusty started. Okay. All right. I think that was a little technical difficulty there. But anyways, Dusty started with question number 1. And then so question number 2, we'll start with Thelma. And then when we get to the community questions, we'll start with Amy. So here's question number 2, candidates. Thelma, lateral violence is when an oppressed people turn on each other. What will you do to prevent or treat lateral violence like bullying in our community? So,
With that question, to me, it would be our culture and traditional ways. We were brought up to respect our family members and how you treat each other. Um, just like a brother, you don't even touch your sister. I mean, they were really strict, and so over the generations, that was lost, and so we see a lot of violence among family members. So I would like to see more of those teachings brought back into our communities. I know we have culture, I know we have language, but on that specific area, I really don't see too much of that going on. And I would like to incorporate that into what we have now. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. And here's the question. Question number 2, it's a student question. Lateral violence is when an oppressed people turn on each other. What will you do to prevent or treat lateral violence like bullying in our community? Amy.
So I think that's been it's something that occurs in the workplace. It's something that I hear about occurring at the schools. Um, so probably also in the community. And I think like if we're elected leaders, I think the first place that we need to start is through our own behaviors, because we can't be exhibiting lateral violence against other people. Well, lateral would be other council members. So making sure that we have a cordial and respectful um, discourse in our everyday work. Like I feel like it starts there and then it comes down, because then you have the tribal council members that are sitting on different boards. And if you're going to treat something in the workplace, then you probably need to involve human resources in that and look at developing either training or policies so that people can have a safe space to talk about those things, to because sometimes people are just afraid and they don't want to say anything, and that is not productive for the tribe. And that's not, like, if we're in the business of providing services for our community and for our families, we want people to be able to bring their best selves to the table, and we know that this can affect that. So we have to create safe spaces for people to be able to address it, and then working through it with people. And then in the community, I think we need to start, we have to go to the schools, we have to provide community um, resources and family-based resources, because we often treat the workplace or the school or the child or the parent, but we don't bring the families back together. And we really want to teach our younger generation um, better than what was taught to us, because we're still suffering from like hundreds of years of colonization and learned poor behavior. And so I think making sure that you include community level stuff and family stuff um, also needs to be a part of the solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy, for that response there. Just a reminder, we do have a timer down here, and the council member or the candidates have 2 minutes to answer the question. So, question number 2 to Dusty: lateral violence is when an oppressed people turn on each other. What will you do to prevent or treat lateral violence like bullying in our community?
If something happens once, it's an accident. When it happens more than once, then it becomes a problem. And so when it gets to the tribal council level, however it gets there, it's not the individuals doing that, it's the entity that where it happens that needs to be held responsible. And they will be held accountable for that, not following the policies and procedures. And so, thank you.
All right, folks, that was it for the student questions. The next questions that we're going to go and turn our attention to are the community questions. We have probably about 8 members that are in here in the audience. Some of them are communication staff. I see some that are from different organizations and whatnot. But we'll get with this question here. So the next question, going, and Amy will start question number 3, then it will go Eric and then Thalma. It says, many families struggle with generations of addictions in broken homes. How can you help break this cycle to empower families to heal, grow, and improve their lives if you get a council seat? Amy.
This was something I actually wanted to work on addressing when I worked as the Human Services Director. And this goes back to kind of some stuff that I included in my letter about really believing in creating family support systems in our community and offering families the opportunity to relearn some of our culture and traditions. And so we had tried to develop like a family-based group decision-making model for children involved in child welfare that was based on our Ho-Chunk kinship system. And I also was the one that had our kinship system. It's in our law. So when a children is removed, when a Winnebago child is removed from their home, they are supposed to be placed according to the kinship system, and that is the law. And that should apply to our children that come into care off the reservation. And our ICWA specialist would be the one that goes to the court and tries to make sure that that's enforced. Um, and I grew up like that. My grandmother instructed me on how to be a wife. She instructed me on how to be a mother and how to be a good relative. And she told me who my relatives were. And that is a part of and what my roles and responsibilities were to my different relatives. And so that was something that I feel like a lot of the people that were developed or that got involved in child welfare maybe lost that a few generations ago. And what that does is that builds a support system for you. If you know who your relatives are and you know who you can ask for help and you know what the roles and responsibilities are between them, that can be a great support system for the family. And sometimes maybe some of the families don't have immediate relatives, but that's the great thing about our kinship system is it's like huge. There's the blood side, there's through marriage, there's through adoption, but that could be a great source of support for families and for children as opposed to, and then they get to make the decision based on what their role is in the family. But I think developing more systems like that to support our children and families is one way that we can help families in the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. We'll go to Eric. So many families struggle with generations of addiction and broken homes. How can you help break this cycle to empower families to heal, grow, and improve their lives if you're on the council? Eric.
What we're doing right now is we're trying to do that. You know, since I've been on a council, that's what we've been trying to do, is reinforce all of our tribal entities, our drug and alcohol program, all of our services, community services, you know, to keep reinforcing them, to keep moving forward, and to keep looking at new angles on how to find the gaps that haven't been filled yet and fixing that. Other than that, the only thing that we can do is verbally talk to our community members and let them know that we're there on a personal level as well as a council level. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. All right, Thelma. Many families struggle with generations of addiction and broken homes. How can you help break this cycle to empower families to heal, grow, and improve their lives?
Um, that question and that problem, we all see it every day in our community, in other Native communities, and I've been to some powwows, and I've seen that a lot of these reservations, they really struggle hard with this too. I mean, it's really, you just obvious, you can see it. And it's really sad and heartbreaking to me to see that. Um, and one of the things that I see is that we have a lack of codes that can address this with our tribal court. Seems like when things go through the court, they just get a slap on the wrist and here they go. Now a lot of people know who's dealing, who's doing this, who's doing that. I mean, and just drugs and alcohol altogether. Um, I myself, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do none of that. And it's sad to see our little children going through these things and have to live with that day by day. And so I would like to see the tribal court work more, get better codes in there, and also with our law enforcement um, to do a better job in that area. And one of those things that I see with the police is like there's a lack of, like, say they're going to keep them overnight, there's no place to take them, so even that's a problem. um, and also I would like to see more outreach workers with our alcohol program that we do have. um, it's really vital to have them people out there working with our our loved ones who's struggling. You know, I'm sure they're crying out for help, but who do they go to? Who do they talk to? Who can they trust? Who's really going to be a support for them? So I would like to see that something in place with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates. And for those that are tuning in, we're getting about 30 people that are online. If you have any questions, make sure you type it into the chat. We do have a candidate that has arrived here, and we want to give Kenny an opportunity to give you an introduction to the people that are online as well as the audience. So you get 1 minute to introduce yourself, and then we'll ask you this question, okay? Come on up and speak into the mic, and we'll go from there. So this is candidate Kenny Mallory.
Thank you for this opportunity. I've been on a council 27 years off and on. The first time I ever served on a council was in 1979. I served a 3-year term, and when the council members met then, it was $15 an hour. And our council meetings usually went from 5 o'clock till midnight and past. And since then, I've been on and off the council. I served as the alcohol director for 10 years, and I ran a vocational training program called Indian Action Program. So I've been involved probably most of my 30-some years back here, except for the 8 years that I worked for General Motors. I look forward, and I'd like to get back on the council again. This past year that I've served, I've kind of done a lot more listening than I talked to in earlier years, because I think the young generation that's coming to the council nowadays really has a lot more opportunity and a lot more resources to improve the quality of life for Winnebago people. You know, there's been a couple occasions when oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't want to cheat.
But sorry to interrupt you, Kenny. You get 1 minute to introduce yourself, and so you get 2 minutes to answer the question. Okay. So we're gonna ask this question. You can finish your introduction in your 2 minute allotted time, but stay up here. And Kenny, come on back up here. Here's the question.
Shouldn't have been late.
Here's the question. Many families struggle with generations of addiction and broken homes. How can you help break this cycle to empower families to heal and grow to improve their lives? 2 minutes.
The broken homes part of it, I really can't say a whole lot, other than because I didn't have a mother or father. I was born out of wedlock, and my grandmother raised me till I was 5 years old, and I went to the Reformed Church mission. So I never got the opportunity to say, Mom, can you do this for me? Dad, would you come to my ball games and watch me play? Or I couldn't do any of that kind of stuff because I didn't have a family. And so I don't know that much about it, but I do know that if we're going to turn around the breakdown of the family structure, we need to reverse this policy of grandparents taking care of grandkids. Society and family should be just the other way around. Children should be taking care of their parents and their grandparents. I think when we start realizing that important and that significance to this reservation and to our people, things will start turning out better for both the young people and the grandparents. They shouldn't have to be punished by moving out of a house or adjusting their income or begging for money because they've given all they have to their children or their grandchildren, and the grandchildren and children haven't responded in a right way. So while I never had a family, you may say, well, how do you know to correct that situation? I don't. I just know that there's resources out there to make that change from grandchildren having to be raised by their grandparents. It should be the other way around.
Okay, Kenny, we're going to keep you up here. So what we did is we started question number 1 with Eric. Question number 2 went to Thelma. Question number 3 went to Amy. So with you in the rotation, you're going to start question number 4. Okay? And then we'll just kind of make our way through that rotation again. So here's the question. Question number 4, coming from the community. Winnebago has an enrollment/blood quantum problem. What is your solution to fix the system that has been forced upon us?
I think there's a suggestion that might come out on a ballot. I don't know. I haven't heard any more. But there's been some suggestions that if we go back to the 1934 census and go with 4/4 blood quantum for everybody at that time, that should correct and increase our enrollment as a tribe. We're not gaining anymore. Yeah, it looks like it when you sit at that council and see all of these young people that come in there, and probably rightfully so, or they wouldn't be presented to be enrolled as Winnebago people. But if we're gonna exist for the future, we need to have to change our system of identifying blood quantum. And as we get more successful and more prosperous, you're gonna see an influx of people that all of a sudden wanna be a Winnebago.
Thank you, Kenny. All right, we're going to go over to Eric. Winnebago has an enrollment/blood quantum problem. What is your solution to fix a system that has been forced upon us?
One of the solutions that we came up with was to play the white man's game with him, because the way it's set up now is for us to be eliminated as natives in the next few generations. And so what we came up with was to make everybody 4/4 Native American, Ho Chunk, and to fill that void of non-nativeness in their blood. And so then we'll become the new forefathers for the future generations. So then we won't have to go back to the 1936 census. We'll be coming to the 2022, 2023 census. And that's where we'll start over again. That should last us for hopefully 100 years or 3 or 4 generations. And that's just keeping it simple as it can be right there, to keep us as people, indigenous people, whole chunks alive. And so that's where we're going to be moving here in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, Thelma. Winnebago has an enrollment/blood quantum problem. What is your solution to fix a system that has been forced upon us?
Well, my thought on this is that this problem is not never going to go away, because we're always going to have to show proof of our blood quantum, our pedigree. When it was changed to include other Indian blood, it just made it a mess, made it worse, harder for enrollment to get caught up on all these. So that's the problem right there. And if they wanted to make things easier, they should have just made it at 8th. Anyone at 8th and over can be enrolled. And I'm not sure how this problem is going to be solved right now, because they are backlogged. I mean, it's just crazy, because they have to call the other tribes that they may be part of to get a paper saying that they're not enrolled with them. So a lot of these things are taking time, and so the enrollment's really getting backed up. Maybe one solution would be do a DNA, have our DNA done. You can go back to who's ever on that base roll, and if that DNA matches to one of them, and then enroll them. You know, my dad always say, if they want to be Winnebago, then let them. You know, so I don't see no problem with that. But that would be one of my solutions, would do that. Thank you.
Okay, Amy. Winnebago has an enrollment/blood quantum problem. What is your solution to fix a system that has been forced upon us?
So I think everybody has some good suggestions because you'd either go back to the roll or you could start with 2020. And I like the idea of it's been an ongoing issue and it's kind of new in the native world. And I think it would be, but there were some changes made that allowed certain people to get enrolled and not others. So I think I would be okay with doing the 4-force, making everybody who is 1/4 or more Winnebago 4-force, because that what she was saying is like there was people who counted other Indian blood, there was people, but before all of that happened, everybody that enrolled was 4-force, or everybody that was enrolled was 1/4, and making them all 4-force for now. And then that would give us the time to figure out a different solution, because I think like in Canada, I think when they enroll their members in a band, I think they make them 4-force. Like when they're enrolled, I don't think they break it down by percentages or fractions of Indian blood. So I think that would be an immediate way to allow people to get enrolled while we find a different way to rewrite our constitution and figure out how the membership feels comfortable enrolling people. And I'm not one, I think the more the merrier, my own self. And I know that there's a lot of people here, like my children, they're culturally, they're Ho-Chunk. They have Ho-Chunk Indian names, they carry our Ho-Chunk ancestors' name, but they're not enrolled here because they're 3164, or they're like 128th short of being 1/4 Winnebago. So I know that it's an issue. It affects my family personally, and I think finding a quick solution, then finding something more long term as this progresses throughout Indian country, not just here. You know, what are other tribes doing and what works? Thank you.
Okay, so that was that question. So we are upon question number 5 here. Here is the question. We're going to turn our attention to Eric. He'll start us off, and then we'll go to Thelma, Amy, and then to Kenny. What would your top 3 priorities be for the Winnebago community? Eric.
I had to think about that for a second. There's quite a few things in our community that needs attention, but I would probably say housing, infrastructure, and help. That's with our community services. And I think that's where a lot of our problems are coming from. And if we can fix those 3 things, that we would be in a better place. Thank you.
Thelma, what would your top 3 priorities be for the Winnebago community?
My first one would be Ho-Chunk history. Know who we are. Who are we? Where we come from? How do we get here? We all need to know that because it's really vital to us. I can't express that enough because through colonization, you know, they wanted us to be like that so that we can forget all about those things and become a white man. And that's not what we are. We're Ho-Chunk people. And so we need to take pride in that and pursue that knowledge of our people. Who in here knows what their third, fourth great grandfather did? Where they were at? Where were they living? What was their living situation? You know, back then we had all kinds of villages all over and different different chiefs for each village. So a lot of them didn't know what the other ones were doing, you know. And I think if we all stuck together at that time, things would be different today. We'd still have our land up there if we stuck together as a people, but we're divided. And one of the things in this colonization is that they wanted us to divide because of the white man's wealth. They want to be wealthy. They want to be materialistic. They want to be powerful. That's not how our Ho Chunk people are. We need to support each other, be there for each other. Remember our ancestors and how we're related. It's really, really important. So that would be my first thing right there. And also with this housing issue, and I mean, just family being together. And once we're all together, all these other things don't matter because we're going to be there for each other and help each other out. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Thama. Amy, what would your top 3 priorities be for the Winnebago community?
I think one of the most common things that people have wanted to work on that I've heard when I've listened to different campaigns is jobs for tribal members. And so I often hear people say they want that, but then I don't see anything done or enacted or any reports on whether they accomplished that or not and what they tried or did it work. And I think that might be one of my top priorities because I feel like we have a lot of educated tribal members that have experience, some experience working externally. Why aren't they working here? Like, why aren't they department heads? Why aren't they in leadership roles? And I think that kind of goes back maybe to the lateral violence. Maybe somebody bullied them. Maybe it wasn't a fair workplace. Maybe they don't want to work here because of something like that. So that's the type of thing that I would want to work on. And we have a law, and it's posted on every tribal entity's website that we have tribal hiring preference, but that's not practiced. And so I feel like as the tribal council, it's our job to enforce that. It's our job, and that's how we protect our tribal members, right? We make sure that they get fair access to jobs. And so I'm not talking about micromanagement, but enforcing law and policy and getting our tribal members into positions. And then we should be training our own tribal members instead of training non-tribal members that come here, get training, and then may leave. Because I've seen a lot of them come and get trained and leave. And so if we're going to be training someone, we should be training our own tribal members. And they live here, they work here, they raise their families here, and they care about the work that they're doing, right? Because they live and work in this community. So that would be my number one priority, would be to work on that with all the entities across the board. The second thing would be really to work on language, and I think language and culture is important also, and I found different ways that we could include that. Maybe looking at how we could, my husband had an idea that I thought was really good about how we could expand our language and culture program. And that's something that I would want to try to implement, and then the family things that I talked about earlier.
Thank you, Amy. Kenny, what would your top 3 priorities be for the Winnebago community? 2 minutes.
The first one is to continue to beautify it. It's a pretty community. It's a thriving community. I have a friend over in Penner that says, you know, Kenny, we used to go around Emerson way to go to Sioux City because we didn't want to come through Winnebago. But you know, today a lot of them people have changed their mind, and we like to go through Winnebago just to see the kind of progress that's being made. We're a lucky town in that we're probably one of the few towns in the state of Nebraska that has a roundabout at each end of its, the north and south end of the town, like we do. There's a lot of beautiful buildings in this community. And I always go up towards St. Augustine to look at that new high school, and what's being developed up there. I only hope they cut those trees away so you can see how pretty it is from the highway. That's the first thing. The other thing I think is we really need to bring businesses to the community where people don't have to drive to Sioux City for jobs, retail jobs, factory jobs, whatever. I think that's an important situation too. But one of the most important things I think is we need to start providing more homes for people. Yeah, 2.0 is a beautiful place to live, but a lot of people would rather live on the north side of the highway rather than out in that area. And there's about 65 vacant lots, maybe more, in this community. They could be cleaned up, cleared out, and nice homes put in there. A lot of them have the infrastructure in them already. And some of them has sentimental value to tribal members, and they probably would love to move back into that settlement they used to know and live in. So I think those three things are important to this community, and it's something that it isn't something that we can't achieve.
Thank you. Bethany, keep me on track here. I started with Eric on this last one, so Thelma will lead us off, right? Is that the batting order? Okay. So we kind of call it the drum rotation. No, but this is the candidates rotation here. So Thelma, this is the question. We'll go to Amy, Kenny, and then Eric will go last here. So, question from the community. Housing for families has always been important to Winnebago tribal members. How do you plan to support current housing initiatives? How do you plan to support current housing initiatives?
I had an idea the last time I was on council, but guess it really didn't have no backing on it. I did mention it to council that if our community, in our community, we have a lot of people who are journeymen. They're carpenters, they're electricians. If we can do like a Habitat for Humanity, where people would come in and we'd get the materials, and then we start building on these properties that he's talking about. There's some places out there. There's some across the Powell grounds. There's 3 empty lots. I mean, there's places around where our tribal members can get maybe like those tiny homes built. You know, that's something attainable. It really is. It's not like, you know, something that can't be reached now. I mean, we can do that. We have people that they'd be, you know, it's volunteer work. I'm sure if we get our community members doing that, and they'll think, well, gee, I need a place too. So, you know, maybe that would encourage them to do that. So that's something that I would like to pursue. Thank you.
Okay, Amy, how do you plan to support current housing initiatives?
So I know the gas tax, there used to be, we get some of that money back from the state, and I know there used to be a pot of funding for home ownership. So looking into what is, because there's different kinds of housing, right? There's apartments, there's rentals, or home ownership. And I think making sure that we have a variety of housing available for our community is good. But the home ownership one, that 1 cent of gas tax, whatever that's going in to encourage people to buy homes, is that enough? Is there a higher demand? Do we have lots to build houses? So looking at that, how are we increasing home ownership? What are the barriers, and how can we help or support that growth? Also, the apartments. So sometimes the apartments are filled by people that live in Winnebago, but I believe we got some money. I don't know if it's for all of them, probably just some of them. We got some money, and so then anybody that lives in a county may be able to get housing. My Kiki's in the back there. She's probably the expert on that, but there's different types of apartments. And so to get the funding that we needed, it had to be opened up to the county. So looking at ways that we can fund apartments so that we can provide homes for our own members and not be tied down to criteria like that. So we need more, I think we need more apartments. We have a large younger population growing that may not, want to own a home. They may not be ready to own a home at this time. Maybe they don't have kids, or they don't. So I just think expanding the current ones and looking for funding sources. So when we were talking about revenue, if there are additional revenue streams, where can we tap into? Where can we build buildings? And I really don't know. Or there's other ways, like what Thelma said, looking at quick ways to get homes, like tiny homes. I've honestly thought about buying tiny homes for my adult children to live in, because it seems like it's something attainable. So are there small plots? Is there a desire for that type of housing? But just looking at what we have and where we can draw for more resources.
Kenny, how do you plan to support current housing initiatives?
Well, I don't know if I have any suggestions on how to support the present initiatives, because they're set up to where people aren't held to the payment schedules and the care of the home, the insurance and all that kind of stuff, plus the disrespect for the facility that they live in. On the other hand, I like to see the fact that we have home buyers programs. I just don't like the fact that the lending part of it is also involved in all that. I was fortunate enough to take that home buyers class about 20 some years ago when Donna Vandell ran that type of program. In her program, she taught the people how to take care of a home too, to how to change the furnace filters and how to just take care of a home, the maintenance part of it. And the lending part of it, I'm saying should be outside the reservation. But on the other hand, I have to criticize or contradict that by saying I got my home financed by uh, what was it, Wells Fargo, and Donna's program was set up to go through them. But as the years went by, it turned out to be a predatory lending institution, I think, in Indian country. And a lot of us found that out way too late. I know I did. I paid maybe 10 years. I didn't get the $10,000 down payment for a home that Donna's program provided. Timing was that I got on the council about the time I was done with that program. And so my home was ready to purchase and everything, but all of a sudden my income was up to where I wasn't eligible for that. So that's why I had to go through Wells Fargo. And they weren't very fair. I mean, they were fair, but they were awful strict. And boy, they made you pay a lot of money for late payments. But with the help of HCI, I was able to get out of that system and go to a Liberty or different bank. It was an Indian-run lending institution. I don't know if any of you are aware of it, but it was First Tribal Lending. It's an awesome program. It's run by Indian people. I suggest it for anybody. I'm sorry I ran over.
Thank you, Kenny. Here is the next question. So Thelma started us off, so it'll be directed to Amy. We'll go to Kenny, and then Eric, and then Thelma. So this one here is actually from YouTube, and we want to thank this person, that Trey Blackhawk. What is your take on buying land back from surrounding farmers? It's a long-term investment, and the land value isn't going to decrease anytime soon. How are you going to contribute?
So I think there's probably a strategy, because it's my understanding that the tribe is still purchasing land when it's feasible or the price isn't really high. Because my understanding was before, when the tribe went to buy all the land back, that the prices became astronomical, and then it became economically unfeasible to purchase land. So I think there needs to be, I'm for that because we're a checkerboard reservation, and so there are parts of the reservation that are not owned by the tribe. And so it would be nice to be able to purchase those plots back, but I think we need to be strategic about it to make sure that we're not, because they probably got the land for cheap, and then they're gonna mark it up and profit from the tribe when they sell it. And I have not seen land posted recently, because a long time ago when I was younger, there was a farm for sale, and for a long time, and I wanted to purchase it to have a home. But I have not seen land for sale in the community, and I've looked occasionally, because like I said, I have adult children, and I was interested in buying land for them to live on. So I'm not opposed to it, but I think that there has to be a strategy to it, because we don't want to pay people that hardly paid anything, you know, highly inflated rates for the land. But it would be nice to have that as a long-term goal, and I think that is a goal of the tribal council. I just don't think that there's much land up for sale right now that I'm aware of. Thank you.
Okay, Kenny, what is your take on buying land back from surrounding farmers? It's a long-term investment, and land value isn't going to decrease anytime soon. How are you going to contribute?
I don't know what I'd do if I wasn't the first one asked because that's giving me time to think what everybody else is saying. So anyway, farmers are selling nowadays. They're either older and they want to get out of the business and they want to sell their land. The other thing is the climate change is causing them to have to do a different way and a distant way of farming, and that's becoming difficult. Even with the weather this year, you see everybody harvesting early and chopping their corn rather than picking it, and that's because they can use it as silage uh, for their animals. But I really think that, and they're coming to their tribe. They've been to us on several occasions, and they want to sell their land. But they're telling us what they want to sell it for. I think we should say what we'll buy it for. I think that's the route I would like to see the tribe go. Don't come and tell us that you'll sell it to us for this much. We'll go to you and tell you if you want to sell your land, we'll buy it for this much. We used to do that when we ran the land management program. We would have Faye go to auctions, and Faye, we would say, this is how much you have to go in the bidding for that farmland. And a lot of times she fared well on that situation. There was one time when a farmer asked me if we could sell it to them for this much. I says, well, why don't you ask Faye about buying the land? Because I knew they hit that they, and this was a Mass family. I knew that he would fare better by selling the land to the tribe than having an auction. But his sons preferred to have an auction, and they left $90,000 on the table because Faye was allowed to go that high, but they went auction instead. And so I think we need to be careful. Buying land is, farmers aren't in the driver's seat right now. The tribe is, because they have the money to do it, and money is what counts. We have it and farmers want it. It's just the opposite of 80 years ago when we had it and the farmers wanted it and they got it.
Okay. So usually, when they have that hook, you know what I mean? So don't get mad at us when that hook appears, okay, Kenny? No, but everybody gets 2 minutes. Appreciate you, the candidates, staying on time here. Eric, what is your take on buying land back from surrounding farmers? It's a long-term investment and land value isn't going to decrease. How are you going to contribute?
As it's been said that we have a checkerboard reservation. In the past, it was taken and sold. People sold their different parcels of land or whatever it might be. But if it was up to me, I would exercise eminent domain, especially if they're not looking at farming due to technological advances these days and children wanting to be in a different role than a farmer. But because there's not too much support for that, I just want everybody to know that we're trying to now, today, purchase our land and get it back to the tribe so our enrolled membership can make the most out of it, either through leases or buying it back for themselves. And the tribe sells it to the enrolled membership, however it might be. But that's what we're doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Thelma, what is your take on buying land back from surrounding farmers? It's a long term investment, and land value isn't going to change or decrease anytime soon. How are you going to contribute?
Again, it's part of the government to have us lose our land, plus try to get rid of us. Part of their genocide. Um, by having this allotment act that they had. And back then, our people were really pitiful and poor and having hard times. So a lot of them just sold their land. They offered from the farmers coming up to them, and so the farmers did. They ripped their people off. They got it for nothing. And so that's why we, like they say, checkerboard, you know. And I know the council was working on some farmland up in Iowa, but we got to be really careful and in trying to get that land back. You know, we be careful. We don't want to give up land that we already have for another piece of land. But I think that there is a way that we can get it cheaper. Is to, I think, is to have them go in and get the soil testing, because if these farmers have been using these pesticides for years on that land, that soil is takes what 10, 20 years for it to get back to good soil again. So I think that would be one way to get it cheaper price. You know, get that soil testing done. Um, because if you come in and you trying to plant something on there, it ain't gonna grow, you know. So I think that would be a way to get it cheaper. Thank you.
Thank you. So, anybody in the audience want to take the microphone and ask the four candidates that we have a question? Go ahead and raise your hand. If not, we'll get to the final question. We have one final question. We'll have Kenny start us off with the final question, but raise your hand or forever hold. Maybe you have decided your vote. Maybe this has helped, but we appreciate the Little Priest Tribal College Native American Studies Department for hosting this, as well as the students that entered their questions, as well as the four candidates that are here with us. You will be voting for the top three, will be getting a 3-year term, and the polls will open on October 4th. It's a Tuesday, and they're going to be at the Blackhawk Center. All eligible Winnebago voters are encouraged to go and cast their vote, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Okay, so with that, we're going to get to our final question, and this is the final question. When the voters go to the polls on Tuesday, why should they vote for you? Kenny, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Why should the voters vote for you?
Why shouldn't they? I know you heard a lot of good comments and a lot of good suggestions and a lot of good answers from these people sitting here today. I just want to say that, first of all, the good news is that we all have those same ideas. The bad news is that you can't vote for all 6 of us. But the good news is that if you vote for me, you'll get the ideas of all those people. So think about that when you go to the polls. Ken Mallory's a name on there. Thank you.
Okay, Eric, final question. When the voters head to the polls on Tuesday, why should they cast their vote for you? Eric.
Well, it's something I didn't think of, but I believe that the people's voice will speak for itself. You know, there's 6 candidates, and I think they're all pretty good. So wherever the votes go is where they go. I'm content. You know, if I'm still on or if I'm not. You know, it's been an honor and pleasure to serve these last 3 years. If I don't make it, I don't make it. If I make it, then I will continue to serve the people as they voted. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. When the voters head to the polls on Tuesday, October 4th, Thelma, why should the voters cast their vote for you?
I ask that you vote for Thelma Whitewater, also known as Chicky. Um, I myself represent a part of the community that their voices are not heard. We have a lot of people out there who they're not really in the community to be seen. They're there, but they have concerns. They have, you know, things like they would like to see too, but you don't see them out here or anything, you know. But I would be speaking up for them, and I'm not afraid to speak up for them and to say what I have to say and be how I'm going to be. I want to work with everyone on the council for the betterment of our tribal membership, and I want to see the tribe going in a good direction. Um, I believe in our culture and our ways. Um, as I talked before, um, we don't want to be the white man. We want to be ourselves, a native, the Ho Chunk people. And don't forget that, and always keep that in the back of our minds so that any decisions that we make around that table, we're going to always remember that, and that's going to lead us into the right way in what we should do for our people. I love each and every one of you, um, and I just want to say that much. Thank you.
Amy, when the voters head to the polls on Tuesday, October 4th, why should they cast their vote for you?
So I included a letter, kind of what some of my initiatives are, or things that I would want to work on that I think would benefit our community as a whole. Um, and I really feel like Eric, like I can't tell people you should vote for me, but what I feel like people should do is get out and get informed, understand what the candidate platforms are, and vote for the person that you think can do the best for our community. Because that would be, I threw my hat. I can't even think of I should not try to say little sayings because I always forget them. I threw my hat in the arena because I offer something new. I've spent more than a decade. So I've been in the working for like 20 years, and I've spent more than a decade working elsewhere and helping other tribes and communities. And I think that is a service that I could provide the tribe. Um, I believe in my language and culture. I practice it, and I also am educated. And so my goal has always been how we can do things our way, but we live in a white man's world, so we have to know how to walk in two worlds. So how do I use their resources or their system to get what I need for my community or for your tribal community, whoever it is that I'm working with? And so I just wanted to offer that, and if people vote for me, then thank you, and if that's not what you're looking for, then I'm okay with that too. But I might keep trying. We'll see. Thank you.
Audience, if you can help me out here, let's give our 4 candidates a big round of applause. They did awesome. We want to thank Little Priest Tribal College as well as our communications team for helping us out here this evening, and especially the candidates. We wish you the best of luck. Don't forget, October 4th is a Tuesday. Polls open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and at the Blackhawk Center. So with that, you folks, I know that on election day, some of you, if you drive through town, some of the candidates will be posted up, and if you want to meet with them, they have their respective social medias or a way to get in contact with them. So reach out to them if you have any other questions that maybe you haven't had an opportunity to ask here tonight, and maybe they'll respond to you with the response. So with that, you folks have a good evening, and thank you for coming out, and make sure you vote next Tuesday for the Winnebago Tribal Council elections. Aho.